Questions out there, but I have been round and collected a couple of questions. I encourage particularly tough ones, so I'm going to open up with those for the second half. Over the course of the season and in recent times, one or two players have moved on, so there's been some changes to the squad. Oreo was mentioned, obviously Akeem's just gone in the last few days. Just want to sort of have a little, just give us a bit of an overview of some of the changes and Biscuits moving on and things like that.
Yeah, Oreo's just he wasn't playing. We had other options in there that were performing, so there was never. Someone told me a couple of weeks ago that it was out there that we'd fell out, which is absolute bull. We still got on really well. He was very patient, to be honest. He still trained properly and stuff like that. But again, we won't just keep players for the sake of keeping them. If we have to move players on, then that's the brutal reality of football, especially at this level. There's no windows or anything like that, and to try and free up money for other areas. Akeem Rose, we couldn't do anything about. He was non-contract, so we literally, you're under obligation. Our club put 7 days in, and they're entitled to speak to them on that 7th day. So we spoke to him. He went to Hereford, who are a wealthy football club at the moment. They've, without going into too much details of what they're paying, etc., that's right, but they've agreed to pay him until June, and the season ends in April. So fair play to him. Another one that got on really well with. He just wanted that security of a contract, and I don't blame him. He's got a young daughter as well that he's come back down from Scotland that he's spending a lot of time with, which we feel we played an important part as well as going back to that human being thing, and he just wanted security to his family, so it didn't stand in his way. Well, it couldn't stand in his way.
We've had it's been quite interesting actually. It's been a learning curve for me as well, because clearly you don't get to become chairman of a football club very often in your life. But we've actually been in a position where we have received cash for quite a number of players since you've been at the club, whether that be compensation or transfer fees, which is a bit of a change from previous. And we've also, obviously don't advertise it, but we have been able to turn down decent offers for players as well over the course of the past 18 months, because we were under no pressure to sell because of the way the club has kind of stabilised.
Yeah, I think it's important to say when you say we receive cash, it's not literally brown and gold cash. It's
a very, very good point.
It's not quite what I was alluding to with other football clubs. It's not by no means that. Yeah, another thing where I tried to stamp my authority almost. We won't just let players leave for nothing and just be quite soft in the market and allow people just to move on if we feel that we're entitled to something now. I think I've managed the budget really well in terms of trying to be clever with it, to be honest, get players in, get players out. As you said, we've had a couple of offers for our players that we don't think is right, and we've knocked it back and we've stayed strong on it, and we won't change on that. But yeah, we've had compensation, we've had a fee for a few players. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of pounds, we're talking very minimum, but every little helps going towards a football club, and obviously it's been going back into the budget, which has been a great help with loads of things, just trying to get players in, trying to get better players in, obviously hotels and stuff like that, and trying to be as professional as we possibly can.
There's a question somewhere who was basically asking, it was related to training a little bit in terms of how much time do you haven't got a set piece coach as far as I'm aware, is that right? But yeah, sure, Sean claiming the job, but how much time do you get to practice set pieces given the limited time you have on the training ground?
It's difficult at Giant Lesbiel. Do we get as much time as we want? Absolutely not, but we still try and touch on them as much as we can. It's an important part of the game, but there's also other factors that's important. So in 4 hours isn't a long time in a week, so you try and find a balance of training's got to be enjoyable. You've got to create an environment where people want to come and enjoy it. You've got to have a majority has got to be of a serious nature. You've still got to have a bit of fun in it. You've got to touch on tactics. You've got to touch on the opposition, their strengths, their weaknesses. So there's loads to go through. So we try and touch on everything. Set pieces is absolutely one of them. And to be honest, Sean and Runes take a lot of a lot of that stuff. And I've got staff for a reason, so I trust them. They do a lot of the set piece stuff. They'll do all the set piece stuff before the game and who's marking who. And Sean's been really good. Sean's a massive Aston Villa fan, so he's big on Aston Villa. Are obviously huge on the set pieces. They've got a set piece coach, so he does a lot of work. Our goalie coach on set pieces, and I think we've scored quite a few from set pieces this year. So he's definitely done well.
The level of, I've been fortunate to go in the dressing room sometimes before a game, try not to, but sometimes, and the level of detail on the whiteboards in the dressing room and on the sheets of information, are incredibly impressive. And of course there's that level of detail, but when you, as a layperson, you see it, it really is quite impressive. And just the individual jobs and the detail about the individual opposition players.
Yeah, I try and give the players as much information as I possibly can, because then they can be accountable, I can be accountable, and it's just an honest environment. So if, for example, we're talking tomorrow, Taylor's very good in the air, and he's a threat, so we recognise that, we put that on there, we give the players as much information as we can. I drive down here, drop the kids off on a Thursday, home games, I drive down here and I'll do as much of the information as I can. We've got a big board that we'll write I've just done it actually before I came here, we'll write the last 3 lineups of our opposition. We'll let the players know their strengths, their weaknesses, what changes I've made, new players that I've signed, what formations I've played, just loads of stuff like that. Tactically, what they'll do. If they do change, then this is how they might go about it. So again, 4 hours isn't a long time, so there's stuff like that that I can almost put to them outside of the training hours. We'll put that in the WhatsApp groups and yeah, it's just trying to give the players as much information as we can without overloading them. I'll stick that in the dressing room probably about 12:15, 12:30, when players start to come in and they can start digesting it and they can see who they might be up against, they can see their strengths, their weaknesses. So it's something that we've done from the day we've come in, and I'll probably continue to do throughout my career.
You got any questions that you want to ask one?
I'd say, Paul, go for it.
I think Dylan Mitchell's been experienced in a couple of weeks. Are you looking to extend it by 4 months?
Dylan Mitchell? Yeah, we'll speak to Swindon again. We are driven by what they will allow us to do. He's been really impressive for us. We've done really well. I think the most impressive thing is that a lot of people probably forget he's still a young lad. He's only 19. He's obviously played at Alvechurch at the level below. He's went to Swindon, got his move, and found it tough to get minutes there. But he's been really good for us. We're really pleased with him. One that we would ideally like to extend, but it's out of our hands at the moment. I think he runs up on the 22nd of February, so it's one that I'll have a discussion with Swindon about.
You're 18 months in the job. What's your most satisfying signing you've made in those 18? I probably know the answer, but which way you're...
My most satisfying signing's been Adam Rooney. As my assistant manager.
I didn't think that.
That's me being honest. He's my right hand man. He listens to all my moans and groans. He listens to all my pleasing things. He'll challenge me. And what I like about Runes is, and we've obviously got a really close relationship. People will laugh. I probably speak to Runes more than I speak to my wife, but that's what happens in football. You're just a constant back and forth. And Runes won't always particularly agree with a decision I make, but I know for a fact when I leave that room, he will back that decision. So, and I like that. I don't want a yes man and somebody to just yeah. And there'll be times where I'll go with Runes and what he thinks and stuff like that. So Runes has been, I know you're probably looking for a player there, but Runes has been my best signing in terms of bringing him into the club, because he's been so reliable for me. Player-wise, I think it'd be unfair to pick anyone out individually. We've had a collective group now that's done really well for us. The players that we originally brought to the club with Kills and Howkins and Skins and Barbos and players like that who've been with us for both seasons.
Anybody got a question for Jamie? I might ask Jamie a question, put him on the spot, just so he feels involved.
I'm happy to
You're more than happy. I wanted to just ask Jay how, off the field, obviously where you are the driving force, how do you think the club's placed currently?
Yeah, it's really good off the field, but I have to say it's driven, everything off the field is driven by what goes out on the field. So, you know, credit to Paul, since he's come in, it's been a breath of fresh air, and I always say off the field we have to be prepared for when things go well. But we are driven 100% by what goes on that field, and you know, as a board and myself, I think that's when we meet, that's everything that we have in our mind, is that everything has to focus out on what's on that pitch. And you know, the bars, commercial, the club shop, they only do well if we're doing well out on that pitch. So, you know, credit to Paul and you know, and the board, that's where the focus is.
Thank you, good to hear from you. Any further questions? Tony was going to willing to ask one.
Really, it was noticeable at South Shields that a couple of seats away from us in the stand was the chairman of Spennymoor and the manager of Spennymoor. I was wondering whether you had any opportunities to go and see National League North teams on your days off.
Not really, because we train Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I don't know how the managers made that there on a Tuesday night, to be honest. But no, it's difficult for us. Ideally we would like to, but we only train twice a week, so I would feel as if I'm almost cheating the football club if I wasn't there on a Tuesday night to go and watch another team. I would rather focus on what we've got, and that's not to say that obviously I don't trust Runes or the other staff, but I'm only there for 4 hours a week, so I want to make sure that I make every minute count. I will go to games. We've had obviously quite a lot off. The Warrington one, I went to watch Warrington Kings Lynn a few weeks back. We'll sometimes, if Russia were at home on a Tuesday night after training, we'll go and catch the second half of their game, whoever they're playing against. So we try as much as we possibly can, but obviously understandably it's really difficult to train the Tuesday and the Thursday, and most games will be Tuesdays or Saturdays. So yeah, it's not ideal.
So when you do your analysis of players, it's of video analysis, or?
Yeah, so we've got a called Y Scout subscription, which you have every single National League North game, every game from National League North right up to the Premier League. That's Scotland, England, Ireland, just worldwide. So everyone's obliged to have footage. Yeah, so it's part of the league rules that you've got to submit the game video footage and stuff like that. So everyone can see everyone. So it's not highlights, it's a full game. So you literally just watch the full game. So we do a lot of analysis off of that. Well, all of our analysis off of that if we don't get the chance to see a team.
There was a question a bit further back. I think.
Just going to ask Jamie about the Floodlights. That's why how they're going.
Darren's done a great job with the Floodlight. So obviously they're on the existing pylons at the moment. They're not, I think Musco said they're not 100% perfect. If they were the final location, they would have made them perfect. But in the summer, the new pylons will go up a lot closer to the pitch with the existing lights that are on the pylons, and they will make them perfect then. So, but I think we all saw the other day that it's a more consistent light, and it made a change from the bulbs going off and on during the game. So yeah, credit to Darren, because he's worked really hard to get to where we are now. So yeah.
I think there was a couple of questions asked, and I did speak to somebody about it the other day. Somebody asked why we couldn't just carry on with it the way it is currently. I can't remember when it was, but the original plan when we first went for the grant funding for the floodlights was to do exactly what we've ended up with currently, which was to put the new bulbs onto the old pylons. But as we were going through the process of applying for the grant funding, we then got the news from the council that they were looking to demolish the Blackfriars end and flatten that area out, and obviously with that there was the sort of notice period or the potential that then the old floodlight pylons were going to be removed. So we basically we decided it wasn't really fair to apply for grant funding to put them on those pylons, and then in 2 years' time need to apply for further grant funding to remove them from those and put them on new pylons, if you like. And there was no guarantee that in 2 years' time or 3 years' time that funding was going to be available. So it was a bit of a play the percentages and just sort of do the whole project at once rather than in stages. And also, I think it's important you're fair to all the other football clubs that are looking for grant funding as well. And actually, if we're trying to go into the pot twice for the same job almost, to me that's not really sort of fair to all those football clubs that need help from the Football Foundation. So what we've ended up now in the short term is probably perfect, because it means we haven't got to worry about a crane on the pitch during the course of the season, so the work can be done out of season, I think, which is perfect. And it's made Ben Bowen much happier, and he's stopped moaning now,
Yeah, it's given me and Nick a real headache, because we've got all the junior finals, the boys finals, the girls finals to try and get on that pitch, and there is a schedule of work, but hopefully that'll all go ahead and give Ben plenty of time to get on the pitch without any cranes or concrete lorries or whatever else going on that pitch.
Just got 40 odd light bulbs to get. Yeah. 40 odd light bulbs.
Yeah, if anyone wants to buy an old light bulb, speak to Darren.
I think, having seen the size of the ferrule socket to put it in, to be fair, but yeah, they're enormous, those bulbs, when they got them down. It's frightening. Any further questions? Do this one first and then I'll come to you after.
You touched on it lately, but is there any update on the Blackfriars end from the council?
Not as it stands at the moment. I think, should be careful what I say, but the mythical Merton Meadow master plan appears to have resurfaced in the past few weeks, which we are a big part of actually. They came to us to let us know what they were thinking and what their plans were. They need to put in, it's all very complex and things I don't understand, but they need to start preparing pre-planning applications for what they're thinking of doing, which we're part of. We've got obviously a red line around our leased area, which is entirely protected by that. I think what the plans are for actually the Blackfriars end themselves are a bit up in the air, because it remains a very difficult patch of land to build on, because it is an odd shape, and obviously there's a restriction which a stand is going to place on that. So there's no real detail still. The good thing is we seem to be their first port of call every time they have an update. They seem to be coming straight to us to keep us in the loop, which I think is different from the way it's been in the past, which is quite pleasing. So it's in the council's hands really, it remains in the council's hands, but the good thing is we still seem to be very much part of their thinking, and they, the commitment is there for us to see a fourth side of the ground put in place, whatever that might be and whatever that may be.
Well, that was my question, but I've got two other things. I've got one for JD and one for Paul. First one, I'll go with JD. The cap deal, I want to say it expires at the end of the season. Have we started any plans for new shirts? I guess it's probably our biggest commercial salary shop. And one for Paul as well, after that. For next season, have you started to think about, I know it's difficult given we don't know what level we'll be at, but you start to think about next season and players we want to keep?
So firstly, the kit deal, yeah, the one with Kappa is that we are talking to a number of companies. So our kit deal goes through Speed One. They're one of the companies that we're talking to. But we need to make a decision pretty quickly, because we need to start ordering not just the replica kit but also the training wear. But talks are going really well, and hopefully, in the near future there will be some movement on that.
Yeah, so just on next season, it's something that we are definitely starting to look at. Obviously we'll speak to our current players, the one that we're trying to keep for next year. We'll sit down with Chris and the board, and we'll talk about plans for the future for next season, where we're at and stuff like that. So when we've got all that probably at the end of this month, once we get all the games out of the way, it's been difficult to try and focus on anything else other than football at the moment, but once we get that out of the way, then we'll definitely sit down with probably 4 or 5 of the players that we've got at the moment. That's not to say we'll keep any more or where they'll stay or whatever it is, but we'll start penciling things in and speak to people.
I think sort of leads on from that a little bit. There was obviously after the kiddie game on Boxing Day, there was quite a lot of reaction to that around the full-time, part-time scenario and everything connected to that. I think Paul's on record as saying we probably had the worst luck you could ever wish for. Is we got two of the strongest full-time teams within about 5 days of each other with very little training time for either game. That's fair to say, isn't it? You said that, well, before I go on, you said that's probably the worst possible timing for those two.
Yeah, it was. We didn't have anything, to be honest, in between. So we played Scunny Saturday and I didn't see the players again until Boxing Day. So it was difficult. So I'm not taking anything away. They were far better than us. I'll sit here and be honest enough and say they were miles better than us. We could have had 2 or 3 days build up to that, possibly still the same result. However, it wasn't ideal. But that's this league. You've obviously you're polluted with full-time teams and hybrid teams and the like. So it wasn't a great day, but we moved on.
Yeah, and I think off the back of that, I mean, as a board, obviously we're always looking ahead. We're always monitoring financial picture and live as we're moving forward. And obviously, we have got to have our ambition has got to be to try and get this club as high as it possibly can be. Naturally, that will lead to thinking about full-time further down the road, whether we can move to hybrid, whatever the picture is. But just without being negative about it, it's just to give you an idea of some of the things that are going to have to be thought about. It's if you suddenly switch, as it stands currently, we pay players a maximum of 44 weeks because they're part-time. If you go full-time, you've suddenly probably got to pay quite a percentage of your squad for 52 weeks. So you've got to find a lot of extra money to cover that off. You've got to look at, Paul will probably need a bigger staff if you're going to change the model of what you do. So, the switch to full-time is easy to say, but we as a club and as a board have really got to analyse the risk involved when we're ready to get to that stage. Everybody's pretty clear that 18 months ago the picture wasn't great. Thankfully it's now much better, but it's very easy to say, it's not a criticism, but it's very easy to say we should be looking to go full-time, but then when you sit down and think about the extra cost that might come with that, it is remarkable really. And it's not to be negative about it, it's just the realities of what it is. And what we don't want to do is push ahead into a position where all of a sudden we leave ourselves exposed and suddenly realise we're not ready to do that. Because if you go ahead and do it and then realise you're not ready, that's a very grave, a very serious situation. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done. Paul will be involved in that work, given his knowledge of football and the market that he's trying to work within. And it's just, we're going to have to do a lot of work to try and work out, right, how do we progress? No one should be in any doubt that we are desperate to progress, and we know we have to and that we want to, but we have got to be very sensible about it and very realistic about it. And I don't mean to say negative about it, because it's what we all want more than anything, but I think it's the reality of it that we need to address just to understand it better. And I think, you speak to other managers and you know people who have tried to make transitions and you know what other people have benefited. The benefits are obvious, if you like, to us all in terms of Paul getting extra time with the squad, but it's also got to be weighed up against the possible impact of rushing into that or making the wrong decision.
Yeah, I came out a couple of weeks ago and said, I think you back this up along with the board. We're not ready to be full time. You can't, even if you look at a personal thing, if you've got £5,000 in your bank and then 18 months later you can't go and buy a £500,000 house. That's just the fact. It's the same as business. We can't go full time, as you said. There's so much more to it. Whether we can look at something in between, then that's something that I'm sure we'll sit down and discuss further. But football wise, listen, the pros are there. You get more time on the field with the players, but the bigger picture is it's important that it's it's right for the football club rather than selfishly right for me or the players or anything like that. It's got to be right for it's the football club is the most important, and the longevity of that and the safety of the football club with 3, 4, 5 years further down the line, rather than, as you say, jump into it, go full time and then probably open yourself up to a massive can of worms because you're not quite ready, and then you come up against loads of issues and you have to retract, and then you lose that positive momentum from the supporters and what we've built at the football club because you've made a vital mistake. So it's important we take the small steps. It's not when you don't sprint before you can't walk, if you know what I mean. So I think we're really pleased, everyone, with what we've done in the last 18 months. We try our best to continue to carry that on, and if it means moving on to the next level, then great.
Any more questions?
You're going to get sick of me now. It's another one for Jamie, actually.
You can keep asking questions.
Well, it was one of the previous forums that we had. I think it was mentioned another run of Retro Unite shirts. Is that still in the offing? Any shirts from basically the early 2000s is what I'm after. Any more plans for those?
Yeah, it's still on the agenda. At the minute, the stock levels in the shop are quite high still, so we just got to wait for that to come down a bit. But the plans, the designs are done, and it's ready to go. It's just waiting to kind of get the gap in the stock levels in the shop. But certainly for the summer, because it's a t-shirt, so yeah, hopefully it's still there.
Any more for any more? Paul?
Question for Paul. This week the National League's launched the 3-Up campaign, which all 72 members are supporting. What's your views on 3 clubs being promoted to the EFL in 72?
I think it should happen, but I'll be honest, I don't think it will. I think the EFL clubs will protect each other. Gareth Ainsworth, I think, just come out yesterday. I don't know if you've seen it, Wickham, the Shrewsbury manager now, and all EFL clubs are going to protect each other. That's the brutality of it. I think it should be, especially, I think how many come down? 2 from, they could increase it to 4 to come down from League 2 and then 4 to go up from National League, and then you've got 2 from 2 and 2 and stuff like that. So I think it should be, but again, I think it's probably going to be a non-starter just because of the EFL clubs will stick together and will vote against it.
If there are no more, we might pause. We have it.
Are we like to see the young lad who started the season and got a back fracture? Or one leg longer than the other?
Yeah, Preston's, he's still not back training yet. We've got him to see a podiatrist who will assess him further. He's a young lad, he's 18, we don't want to rush him back. He's never mind his football career, he's got his life ahead of him. He's still in a little bit of pain, but we think we've got to, excuse the pun, the bottom of it. We think we've found what he needs. I think he needs basically a heel raise, which will help him, so we're looking at getting that sorted for him. But it's been a massive blow for him because he was really positive for us in pre-season. He's trains really well, and he'll be a decent player. He'll have a half-decent career. We just need to be important. It's just important that we look after him health-wise more than anything.
Go for it.
Last season we saw a bit of Aaron Walby, but a while back I saw that he signed for Westfield, but then he was on the HFA Cup game. So is he dual registrations?
Arwen was out for another one with a stress fracture. Actually, the stress fracture in his back as well, so we didn't see Arwen throughout. The first and last time we seen him this year was the pre-season friendly at Pegasus we played against Westfield. So he's been out for a long time, so it's important he gets football. But yeah, he's been out and getting games with other clubs, and he'll continue to do that. It's difficult at the moment to try and bridge that gap, to be honest. The gap between our academy at the moment and where we want to be in the National League North is pretty big. I know supporters don't want to hear that, but that's the genuine reality. Aaron's a good player. He needs to go and play men's football and try and get as much game time as he can.
One for you, Chris, I think probably. Just your thoughts on the name and the possible name change, and what you think of that, and are there any sort of next steps to sort of broach the fan base about it, etc., and what will happen?
Yeah, there was obviously the vote before, there was obviously the shareholders' vote before Christmas, and in all honesty, since then we've kind of parked it a little bit because there are no immediate timescales we need to hit or deadlines that we need to hit. So we've parked it. It'll come back for discussion probably closer to the end of the season when we're going to have more time to then work out how. I think the general consensus seemed to be we can't have a vote of the fan base because it would have no standing in reality. But what we can do is offer more or a wider proportion of the fan base the opportunity to express an opinion, and I think that's probably what we'll do. What we would like to do, and what we've already discussed as a board, is that when we get to that stage, it would be good to try and offer, a slightly more educated view of the potential costs, and it wouldn't just be I'm keen and others are keen for it not to just be the club come up with figures, because that's always there for people to go, well, you would, if people think we're against it, they would say, well, you will come out. It's actually to try and explain those figures and involve the Bring Back United group and the Supporters Trust and whatever. So almost any figures that are put out alongside a survey are realistic figures, or to be honest, it's always going to be a bit of a finger in the air job anyway, whatever the figures we come up with, but in terms of slightly more accurate, because we obviously have an understanding of the stock that we carry in the shop, which is very different from probably what you'd imagine, and it even was a surprise to me at the time when the figures were specifically shared with me. But I think it's definitely something that we can't ignore. We know it's going to happen. I've said all along that I don't have a particularly strong view on it either way, but then I have the advantage of it's never felt any different to me. When I've been watching Hereford FC, I've become equally frustrated and angry with Hereford FC as I used to get with Hereford United at times. Less lately. less lately. But
It means before the last 18 months.
we weren't speaking for 3 days after Radcliffe. We're all right now, so it's okay. But yeah, so I thought. But then I completely respect the fact there are people who have different view, who does feel different too, and I think that's football fans, isn't it? Everybody's got a different opinion, so it's definitely something we'll revisit. We're not ignoring it. It's just kind of, particularly right now, we've got so much else going on. So I think the deadline is the end of the year, isn't it? If we were looking at it, so there is plenty of time to conduct that piece of work. And I've said it quite a lot, but unless you're here, you can't understand quite how busy it is for the staff on a day-to-day basis. And actually to ask them to do a piece of work or help with a piece of work while the season's ongoing, it's just unrealistic and unfair in my view. So we will get there, and it's not being ignored, if you like. It's just almost been deferred for now to allow us to get through this period. Anyone else? Go on. Does anybody want to finish off with one last question before we round up? Excellent. No problem then. Paul, thank you ever so much for giving up your time. We'll allow you to go back to your whiteboards. Carry on with your planning ahead of tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, just a quick round of applause for Paul and for Jamie. Look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thanks ever so much for your support. Thank you.